There's 200 people and the classroom is packed. Everyone is stacked on top of each other. I get started on an example on the board. Somebody asks me a question and then I lose track of where I am. You have your notes, but you never really exactly follow your notes. Like you're working on something in real time rather than just reading off your notes. I'm just facing the board writing. I'm thinking, what a disaster. Somehow I end the problem with the answer, but not really explaining along the way how we got there. In the end, all I can say is, we're just going to finish this problem. Here's the answer, and I'll post more details later. When students come to class, they really want to see more examples that aren't in the book. That's one of the most common requests you get as a professor. So you get ready for class ahead of time and you think you have it all figured out. It's not like it's the first time you've seen the problem, right? And of course, these aren't book problems. I'll pick something from recent news, for example, why the SpaceX booster failed, or there's usually something that's failed in the news. But there is this hazard of doing examples in class, even when you've worked the example ahead of time, that you make a mistake right then at the board, or you might even have made a mistake before, like in your notes. So any numbers you have at that point are now all wrong. When I'm reading off my notes, I'm more likely to lose track and make a mistake because I'm not thinking and just writing down the numbers. So I do try to avoid reading off the notes. And you don't memorize everything because, well, there's a benefit to students seeing how you're thinking through a problem. I found it's really helpful when I notice an error in my example problem, which definitely has happened, or have worked myself into a corner at the board. I'll just stop and say, now it's time for all of you to work with a partner, and I give them a minute or two. Because in so many of our problems in engineering, like machine design or material science, we want to work through a problem all the way to a calculation. We might need to know the number of cycles to failure, or the largest force in a part, because in the end, we often end up with a number, not some theoretical answer. With a number, you can tell if there's an error. The number doesn't make sense to you. Maybe you missed a term or you used a natural log instead of a log in a calculation, or you forgot a unit conversion. I emphasize how I knew it was a mistake. So we'll talk about how if they're on a test and they get to the bottom and it's some ridiculous number, they know that they made a mistake somewhere. And, on a test, they may not have a lot of time to fix it. But it's okay to just write, there's a mistake here. And when we grade, we actually give them some credit for just recognizing something went wrong. I emphasize that at work, there won't be an answer book, so they have to do a reality check. And that's why it's important to have a conversation with your students when you're teaching, when you're at the board, and let them know how you're thinking instead of just copying down numbers from your notes. As engineers, we need to step back and say, oh, wait, that doesn't make sense. There's a problem here. And I think my job at the University of Minnesota is to train engineers who can think both analytically and intuitively.